Ask you a series of basic questions to get facts out to American people about our system of justice. Trump advisor Roger Stone was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump donor Elliot Brady was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Also my recollection.
The Attorney General at the time for those two convictions was Bill Barr. Which president nominated Bill Barr for Attorney General?
President Trump.
Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen was convicted on two separate occasions in a federal court, correct?
I believe that's correct.
The Attorney General at the time for Cohen's second conviction was Matthew Whitaker. Which president appointed Matthew Whitaker as acting Attorney General?
President Trump.
Trump's former campaign chairman Paul Manafort was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes.
Trump's former deputy campaign manager, Mr. Gates, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump's campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes, I think he pled guilty, yes.
The Attorney General at the time of those three cases was Jeff Sessions. Which president nominated Jeff Sessions for Attorney General?
President Trump.
You were the FBI director for all of those cases at the time. Which president nominated you?
President Trump.
Okay. What these facts show is we don't have a two-tiered system of justice. We have one Department of Justice that goes after criminals regardless of party ideology. All of these folks were convicted under the administrations of three separate Republican attorneys general. It is not the fault of the FBI that Donald Trump surrounded himself with criminals. Donald Trump brought that upon himself.
Just let that breathe for a second. Democrat Congressman Ted Lieu with that exchange with FBI Director Christopher Wray during a hearing before the House Judiciary Committee.
I'm going to say part of his answer or part of the guy's statement was true pertaining to what Donald Trump, he accused Donald Trump of surrounding himself with criminals. But there's also part of that that is not true due to the fact that some of those people already had those positions to begin with, and Donald Trump had to compromise in who that he actually had around him that was doing various jobs, because there was lots of people that he told them to hit the road. So it was a very, very snaky, crookedy road that Donald Trump was having to walk down because of the illegitimacies that was going on already in the department. Now, what this individual right here, I forgot his real name, but anyways, he's the commentator on this particular show. What he's fixing to say, I disagree with. I'm going to let you go ahead and hear what he has to say, and then I'm going to make a comment on it.
And Maura Gay, let's add one other, stubborn fact for Republicans to that point. Hillary Clinton, who is constantly used as the false equivalency against Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton was attacked repeatedly by Republicans who said she should be locked up, and yet Donald Trump was president from 2017 to January 2021, and none of his attorney generals brought any charges against Hillary Clinton because they all told Donald Trump nothing was there.
I mean, the hypocrisy is sometimes makes you want to throw something at a wall. But, you know, on a brighter note, this exchange was heartening because it's another example of how, from the January 6th committee to an exchange like this, I think allowing Americans to actually see, live, breathe, listen to the reality rather than just simply trying to make sense of an extraordinary set of facts on paper can be really helpful. I think when, in particular, I think the congressman was very effective in his questioning. When that happens, it's kind of much easier to see the hypocrisy drawn out, to see how absurd this is, and to understand that, you know, the Republican attacks and Trump's attacks on the government, on the Justice Department, are really obscene. And I think it's helpful because television can be very powerful.
Are they really obscene? Now listen to what they're fixing to say here.
Is an example of that. I mean, you just see how ridiculous it is. You hear how ridiculous it is. You make the case before the American people over and over and over. And that has an effect, I think, hopefully for justice's sake, but also, you know, politically it has an effect. And that's important because all of this can be very difficult for everyday Americans to track. Here at the table, we're junkies, but I think Americans are trying to make sense of this. And it's very helpful when you see this drawn out. You know, no one can watch this and think, you know, anything other than this is absurd, what's happening here. And I think it's very...
Now that statement was correct, but it's absurd on both sides. Not just one side, but on both sides.
Very effective.
It's also painful. It's got to be painful for people like those who serve in the FBI.
Every day, yeah.
You know, who are doing their jobs and serving this country.
Serving this country, and as the FBI director said yesterday to the Republicans, they keep talking about defunding the FBI. When you do that, you're defunding the very people that defend this country from foreign terrorists, from drug gangs, from people who are constantly trying to smuggle fentanyl into the United States of America.
And guess what? They've done a poor, pissy job ever since that I can remember, because the drugs has gotten worse, the guns has gotten worse, we've gotten further in behind towards being in debt. Listen to some more.
From people who are constantly trying to engage in cyber theft, to steal
pissy poor job
money from your bank account.
Pissy poor job.
People that are running scams against your parents.
Pissy
and
poor
your
job.
Parents to drain them of their life savings.
Everything that he's talking about are agencies that we pay big money for have all in some form or fashion failed us. Just like 9/11. 9/11 was a failure pertaining to how that this government should have protected its people in never allowing for that to have occurred. But yet now I get a telephone call last night by telling me Mr. White here in this area is running some sort of personal investigation on me, that they're out to get me, and which that basically verifies a cop that come by here last week. It acted like it somebody made a 911 call, and the fact of the matter is they're just down here snooping around trying to figure out, because whenever I post stuff, regardless whether it be on YouTube or on Facebook, and all of a sudden that stuff gets basically vented and it immediately gets taken off, and it says whenever it takes it off, well, the user decided to take it off. It was taken off because of the user. I just discovered that last night on one of the videos that I posted on YouTube, not YouTube, but on Facebook, that basically is telling a out and out lie to my viewers that I decided to delete something from one of my Facebook pages, and I didn't. So it just depends on, first of all, who you are. Second of all, what you're saying. Third of all, whether or not you're saying it against the Republicans that the Democrats has power to delete your information from, or you're saying stuff against the Democrats that the Republicans has the power to delete your stuff from. Either or, they are not working in the interest of the American people. And if that can be debated one way or the other, I'll kiss your tail and give you 30 minutes to draw up a crowd, because the things that I can witness and see and the things that anybody else should be able to witness and see, and I'm not saying that all FBI and all people in federal agencies are all bad, because I know that they're not. But where they have failed is the people that have failed us. They did not stream them and get them out. They kept them in there towards doing their dirty work, and they tried to cover up for them, which makes the whole agency now look bad. The whole agency looks bad. And whenever you do that year after year after year after year, and you continue to take a country that used to be thriving and used to be worth I don't know how many trillions and trillions of dollars, that now we're diminishing our quality of our services because we're steadily going backwards, not only monetarily, but we're going back morally, we're going back spiritually, we're going back ethnically, we're going backwards instead of forwards. And instead of seeing peace and utopia, we're seeing crime, war, injustice, we're seeing drugs, we're seeing children being raped, we're seeing children starving, we're seeing gun violence, we're seeing all the other things. So how can anybody sit up there and say that the FBI and all the other law enforcement justices up there have done a great job? You have to look at the whole truth and not just part of the truth. And I realize that the commentator up here on this particular program wants to pat him on the back because he himself wants to score good points with these agencies. Well, it's one thing to want to score good points with the agencies, and it's another thing to score good points with the reality of we the people. And whenever we the people can see where these agencies has let us down, we're not going to try to whitewash it. We're not going to try to cover it up. And whenever it comes to me putting stuff on my social media platforms and somebody deletes it and says that I was the one that deleted it, is nothing more than a mere lie coming from the social media platform that I was using at that time. Now, don't get me wrong. I realize that everything that I use on social media platform, once I put it on there, it no longer belongs to me. Legally, it's no longer mine. And it's the same way with anybody else that puts material out there, regardless of what social media platform that they put it on. Once they put that material out there, it can be either used for you or against you. And basically, what they're doing, they're cutting through the chase to where they no longer have to go into an individual's home and look around and profile them by looking at what kind of pictures that they have on the walls, by looking at whether or not they're clean, whether or not they're dirty, whether or not they talk good, whether or not they don't talk good, whether or not they seem like they got some education, whether or not they seem like they're just an all out and out country hick or whatever. I mean, are they belong to a thug? Are this? Are they that? They profile people. Well, now they profile you by never stepping into your home. And the way that they profile you is based upon the content that you yourself support and put on social media platform. Just like we the people, we profile what MSNBC puts out to the people. Just like we the people profile what Fox puts out to we the people. And, of course, whenever we see stuff going on with Fox, like has recently happened towards getting rid of one of their anchor men and being sued for almost $1 billion, I think it was something like $800 million. It was an unbelievable amount of money. But whenever we see these things occurring, we're not stupid. We identify of what they're doing and how biased that one radio station or TV station is against the other. And they're working not in the interest for the American people, but they're working in the interest for themselves. For themselves, which actually destroys the credibility of democracy. Because whenever you have both ends working against the middle, now you're no longer working for the people, but now you're working for each party, and because of it, are each news agency, and most of the news agencies are paid off by the politicians. That's how they make their money, especially during election services. If you can't understand that, something's wrong with you. That's the reason why Donald Trump said what he said about the media. that the media has become tainted. The media has become inaccurate news giving to the people based upon what media base it was reporting the news. You know, it's just like the election. You turn it on one channel, and that channel says, "Oh no, Donald Trump didn't win. Oh no, it was the other party." And then you turn it on to another channel, and that party says, "Oh no, Donald Trump won. He won." So whenever you have all these controversial conflicts that's going on in the media, and these are supposed to be professional people that's supposed to validate the truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth, so help them God. Whenever you have an organization that's being run this way, you no longer have a decent democracy. Because they're no longer working for the will of the people. They're working for their own personal parties. And I think a lot of people that I talk to would tell you the same thing. Now, I don't know why the TBI in Weakley County is still wanting to keep tabs on me and still wanting to put out information to various people. Oh, he's under a watch list. Oh, we got him this way and we got him that way. You know, they can say whatever they want to say, but the bottom line is this: these people that has been working for the local public and these local officials have failed the American people. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. I cut it down the middle. And I'm not going to have any more favoritism towards one than I do the other, because a country does not become $30-something trillion in debt with all the fentanyl, with all the people that's hacking into people's accounts, and with our privacy being taken from us, and all the other stuff that's going on with the gun violence and the illegal immigrants coming over here, and our jails being full. All these things is not occurring because of people doing good jobs. Obviously, somebody is failing somewhere, because we continually taking one step forward and two steps back. Now, people like this commentator up here can get on there and they can try to convince whoever they want to convince. And so far, up until just today, I've been pretty fair-minded pertaining to the stuff that he's been talking about, towards it being within the reality of being real or true. But what he's saying right now, as far as I'm concerned, he's off base with.
Down the list, and it's the FBI that's on the front lines, and yet
they are on the front lines, but they're not doing their jobs.
Republicans in the House want to defund the FBI, want to attack our law enforcement officers.
They want to be honest, and they want to put the shoe on the right foot in saying, you know what, we realize that the agency was put in force for a good reason, to protect the American people, but there's been so many cracks within the agency that the agency itself looks bad. And until they're willing to clean up their acts within their own agencies, we're going to continue to see this favoritism, this biasness going on year after year after year, that's not going to be in the interest of the American people. Whenever they spend, ain't no telling how many thousands of man hours and how many thousands of dollars in trying to track people like me towards putting me on a blacklist because of me voicing my opinion about certain subject matters. You know, they want me to be like the rest of these preachers and just stick with John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And other than that, Juby, we don't want to hear your opinions, regardless whether it's opinion about this or it's opinion about that. We don't want to hear your opinions that's going up against this party or going up against that party. So in other words, they don't want to hear the truth. And that's what I stand for. I stand for the truth. And this calling that God has placed me into towards the Windmill Ministries missions stands for the truth. And if people don't want the truth, if people are offended in the truth, then they need to turn me off and no longer listen to me, or even try to be a follower of me on whatever social media platform. If they don't like the truth, they need to cut me off. But if you are for the truth, and if you are for the betterment of we the people, then my suggestions would be take some of the noticing in what I'm talking about. And if I tell the public something that is inaccurate, I promise you I'll be one of the first ones to tell you that I made a mistake. You've never heard me get out here and tell anybody that I can walk on water or raise the dead, that I'm a perfect Christian, because I know that I'm not. I'm a sinner saved by grace. But yet now they'll throw stuff at me in some of my social media platform, deliberately trying to ridicule me or make fun of me because of some of my own weaknesses. I know what they're doing. I know exactly who's in control, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. And it's not just me that's on to them, but the majority of the people. They have fooled the people long enough. And it's time for the baby boomers and those that has created this environment to take second seat, to realize that we're on to you. We know exactly what you done, when you done it, why you done it, that has put now everybody else's lives in jeopardy towards basically the young people that don't even have a future. Now you wonder how come the suicide rate has gotten so high that it is? Blame it on the elders. Blame it on the baby boomers. Blame it on the people that has made these wrong decisions before us, that has put us where we are today. The blame falls upon not the party that's basically in power right now, but you got to go back to the original core of origin, whenever they first started going in left stream. That's where you got to pick up at. But see, they want to keep the American people blinded. They want to keep us stupid. They want to keep us uneducated. They want to keep us on drugs. They want to keep violence going. They want to keep they talk about peace. They talk about world peace, which in some sense, I guess they do want world peace. They don't want an all-out and out nuclear war. But yet now, whenever it comes to the peace within our own borders and the peace within our own nation, they're playing games with the American people. The lawyers play games with the judges play games with the lawyers, and the bottom line is this: they're preying on the American people. Because their interest is not for the American people, their interest is for themselves, in making themselves rich, in filling their pockets full. Now those same people that I'm talking about, they'll diminish the medical side of it and say, well, those doctors, they're not in there to heal you. They're only in there to treat you, because in reality, they want you to keep coming back. Well, that's probably a fair statement to a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them, because there's still good, decent people in the medical field that are truly concerned about people's well-being. And it's not that way in all the law enforcement agencies towards everybody being bad people. Bad judges, corrupt lawyers, corrupt this. But the bottom line is this: looking at the track record, proof is in the pudding, in what that they have done and how that they have done it. Donald Trump nailed it on the head by saying that the swamp needed to be drained and that the system was rigged. And that's exactly what it is. And whenever you get to talking about a one-tier system versus a two-tier system versus a three-tier system, as far as I'm concerned, they got not 2 tiers, but 3 tiers. And the third tier is based upon people that cannot afford to hire these Johnny Cochran attorneys for $500 an hour and pay out $15, $20. I don't even know that you can even hire an attorney anymore to take a state or a federal case for no less than about $15,000, $17,000. Their fees has went up. Everybody's fees has went up. And what they're doing, they're driving this thing off into the ground. And if you don't believe me, go to Lowe's and see what the materials of stuff that used to be one price that now are totally off the wall. Go to some of these retail stores and see what the stuff is. Go to the grocery stores and see what some of these prices are. They'll tell you all the economy's doing great, but they lie to the American people because we don't see it. We don't feel it. We know that a steak is still 3 times higher today than what it was before pre-COVID. We know that certain items has gone completely out of the roof whenever it comes to them price hiking everything. But yet now, somebody like me, if there was a bad calamity down on the southern border with a hurricane, I can load up a vehicle, fill it full of ice, and go down there and start selling ice for $20 a bag, even though I shouldn't be charging but $3 a bag. And the next thing you know, they slap handcuffs on me and want to charge me for price fixing, or want to charge me for jabbing the public. And the people that are price fixing and the people that are jabbing the public are the big wheels, are the people that's lying to us. So yes, it's a several tier system. It's not just a 1 tier or a 2 tier or even a 3 tier. It's a several tier system that makes our democracy look corrupt. And that's the reason why people in China, that's the reason why people in Russia, that's the reason why other communist-controlled countries snigger and laugh at us, because they see that it's a wild, wild west show over here and it's totally out of control. And of course, if you'll add that on top of a commentator that gets on there and only tells part of the truth or tells a complete total lie, there you go. A mixture of what? A mixture of what? What does the Bible say that the devil is? He's the author of confusion. A mixture of confusion. That's what the American people has been having to go through now for the past 30 plus years, ever since certain people in the government head decided to take a left turn for the American people versus taking a right. And to this day, those people still has yet to give an account for putting us where we are as a nation. And what I'm talking about is the Republican Party that started all this during Ronald Reagan's administration. And don't think for a second that it was just one or two politicians. No, no, no. It was several hundred politicians that was involved in that, and it was several hundred media people that was involved in that, and now they have backed everybody up against the corner. And now somebody like me, if I put out the wrong information, in which they liable to end up deleting what I'm saying right now, but if I put out the wrong information, they want to delete it and say that I done it. I took the content off. No, I didn't take the content off. If I put the content on my social media platform, I intended for it to be on my social media platform. Now, if somebody wants to take it and use it, if they want to share it, if they want to support it, that'll be up to them. But they're taking away our freedoms. They're taking away our voice. They're taking away our rights to be able to say the things that need to be said pertaining to not one party or the other, but we, the people. And whenever they take that away, we're no longer functioning as a reasonable, fair, open, Democrat society. A republic. The republic has failed us because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's too many crooks in the system that are now trying to cover one another's tail. And it doesn't matter if it's in Weakley County. It doesn't matter if it's in Dyer County or Gibson County or Madison County or even in the state of Tennessee or Alabama or Mississippi or wherever. It's across the board, all over America, and the people need to wisen up to it, because if not, they're going to drive us off into God only knows what. They've already driven our children and our grandchildren off into a $30+ trillion indebtedness. They've already allowed for all the drugs to come over here. We're hearing of companies being hacked almost every day, our people, their privacy being compromised, or somebody's account being stolen because grandma didn't have it secured just right. If I'm not mistaken, they got a case going on right now in Union City somewhere in Obion County pertaining to some girl that was basically going in and taking an elderly person's account and abusing it, using it, basically being a thief, and they put her in jail because of it, the way that I understand it. I don't know the names, don't want to know the names, and even if I did, I wouldn't give out the names. But I'm just telling you, there's a lot of fraudulent activity going on that the American people have sat blindly by and either allowed for it to happen or didn't care that it's happening. And I promise you, payday is coming around the corner to where the piper is going to have to be paid. You can't continually borrow your way out of debt, by kicking the can down the road, borrowing from Paul to pay Peter, knowing good and well that you'll never have any type of inclinations of paying Paul back. You cannot operate a home, a business, a church, a state, or a nation that way. Nobody runs a business that way. We get penalized if we write a bad check. We get substituted for all kinds of other charges if we don't make a payment. But yet now, the system can do whatever the system wants to do, and everybody's supposed to be quiet about it. We're supposed to brag and say how well our FBI agencies has been doing and how well that this Department of Defense has been doing. Whenever you have 3,000 people, my friend, die in one day over 4 airplanes that was turned into missiles, and you don't get to the bottom of it towards who, the what, the when, and the why, and definitely who should be held accountable for that event that happened, whenever you got a group of people that is acting this unjust, this illegitimate, you got a country that is in a free-for-all, and it's not in a free-for-all towards gaining momentum and getting stronger and better. It's gaining momentum towards it getting weaker and diminishing and destroying our true republic. That's what you have. And unless people like me speak out about it, they're going to continue to play the games that they're playing, just like two attorneys that's in the middle of a case, and you'd think that they're fixing to pull off their shirts and go to duking it out in the middle of the courtroom, and the whole time it's just an act. It's an act. Because 2 hours later, you'll see them, both of them, down at the local coffee shop or over in the bar somewhere, having drinks and laughing and getting along with one another, just like wasn't nothing wrong. It's all a big act, and they're doing it at the expense of the American people that has driven this great nation off into a state of despair. It has driven this nation off into a state of conflict. It has driven this nation off into a state of unsafety issues from A to Z. It has driven this nation off into a state of ungodliness that they have sat idly by and basically promoted these things. Because they could have went in, they could have conformed it, they could have done the right thing, but did they? No. So in actuality, it is the church's fault, because the church has sat idly by, and they have allowed for this stuff now to fester and to get worse and get worse. Well, you know why? Because the phony balonies in those churches was actually wanting it to become worse. They actually thought it was cute in having all this paranormal behavior going on. Not all of them. I'm not saying all of them. But a great deal of them. The corporate churches sat back and allowed for this to get in the shape that it's in. And now don't nobody want to play cops and robbers towards good cop, bad cop. Don't nobody want to be held accountable for what's occurred. Just like all the climate problems that we're having right now pertaining to global warming. People probably snigger and laugh, or they look at me towards me being unjust, or me looking at me towards me being unfair by me saying that there's certain people in the mega oil tycoon crude oil industry that needs to go to jail. Well, that's just not the people that's been working for the oil industries, that owns those oil industries, that needs to go to jail, but the politicians that has sat idly by, that has allowed for it to get in the shape that it's in pertaining to global warming. There's too many unanswered questions. There's too many people that has went scot-free and not giving any accountability for putting us where we are today. Because I promise you, it was not the poor man that put us where we are. It was not the working man that put us where we are. It was not the common person that crucified Jesus. It was those that already claimed that they had some sort of sense of religion about them, and that went up against the mainstream towards away with him, away with him, away with him. The prostitute didn't crucify Jesus. The hobo and the tramp didn't crucify Jesus. The poor people didn't crucify Jesus. You know who crucified Jesus? The ones that already had a sense of belief about them. And that's the very thing that's happening to the founder of the Windmill Ministries for the past 30 plus years. It's been the people that had some sort of ideology about them was the very people that went up against the Windmill Ministries missions, knowing that the Windmill Ministries missions always supported love, grace, and peace and utopia, and etc. Mercy, love, grace. Don't believe parts of the Bible, but all the Bible. You get ridiculed and put into a category around here just for doing that. You got the Baptist that's against the Church of Christ that's against the Methodist that's against the Presbyterians that's against the Lauderdale Saints. It's chaos. It is absolutely chaos. And until we, the people, are willing to speak up about it, it's going to only continue in this rat race. It's a game. And it's a very, very cruel game because it's our children and our grandchildren that are not being taught accurately. It's our children that are being exposed to this craziness going on, that don't know the difference of whether or not a boy's supposed to be a girl or a girl's supposed to be a boy. And now we're having troubles in our sporting competition arenas because you got boys that act like that they're girls that go into these bleachers, and these other girls that knows that they've had these operations feel very, very uncomfortable around being showering around somebody that claims to be a girl, knowing good and well that they're a boy. Who and what has caused all this confusion other than the devil? The so-called believers, the liars, the manipulators.
And yet, you look at states like Florida, you look at states like Texas, and Republicans talk about how horrible it is to work in the FBI. But as Christopher Wray said yesterday, if that were the case, their applications in states like Florida wouldn't be up by over 100% because the professionals, the men and women in the FBI, are very proud of what they do to protect all of us every day, regardless of the nonsense and the ground noise coming from the House Republican caucus, and especially from Donald Trump.
Yes, and the exchanges between House Republicans and Chris Wray yesterday were just brutal. It exposed how astoundingly stupid some of the House Republicans are, or nefarious in their efforts to undermine, corrupt. Let's bring in ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic.
Goes back to the Bible, what Jesus said, that if the blind lead the blind, they both shall lead off into the ditch. That's the reason why that I oppose voting for either group. They are not worthy of my vote. And I've said all along that this is a time that we need to bring in some sort of a third party, a Tea Party or an independent party, somebody like Ross Perot or somebody like that. But yet, no, I don't see no great movement in that neither. So that tells me that the system is still trying to cover up each other's mistakes. There comes a time that you can no longer continue to lie to the American people and the rest of the world and what the hell's been going on. And that's where we are. We're at the crossroads to where if these agencies want to remain authentic, respectful agencies, they need to go in and clean house of the people that they know that's in there that are not legitimate. I don't know who this individual is up here in Weakley County that made the statement that he made that Dennis Jackson was under some sort of investigation deal, who he is, but I'm pretty sure it's part of that group that went out here and tapped around on the internet and tried to make me look like a monster because they themselves was the monsters. They're trying to take good, honest people and throw them under the bus while the corrupt people are playing games with the people, and the whole time they haven't been protecting us. They haven't been protecting our privacy. They haven't been protecting these agencies towards them being hacked. They haven't been keeping drugs off the street. They haven't been keeping guns and gun violence away from our children. They haven't been doing this. They haven't been doing that, and it's time that the American people woke up to it. Now, you can try to whitewash it all you want. And I'm sure there is some very, very good, professional, qualified people in these agencies. I'm not saying that it's not. But what I'm saying is that the bad has now spoilt the good. And because of it, the people has lost interest and credibility and faith in any of these systems, or most of them, especially when it comes to your locals. You know, whenever I put something on there that's telling the truth about my testimony and then it gets knocked off, it's pretty obvious somebody didn't want it on there. But what even adds insult to injury is whenever they post it, the way that they post it, that it was me, the one that took the content off to begin with. I didn't take the content off. If I put the content on there, I expect the content to be there. I put it on there for a purpose. I didn't put the content on there so it could be knocked off. But pretty obvious that if you hurt the wrong party's feelings, or if you say the wrong thing about the wrong people, well, they'll just have it removed. They'll just have you blocked or lock your whole account down to the point that you can't even get any type of voice pertaining to your First Amendment rights, or any of your rights as far as that goes, because the founder of the Windmill Ministries has been walked on ever since 9 tapes went to the White House in 1988. And I can validatedly prove it. I can authentically prove it. But as long as the people rather believe a lie than they would somebody that's honest, then let them continue to walk down this endless path that they've been walking on, because eventually it's going to bite them in the you-know-what. Because eventually there's going to come a day when the piper is going to have to be paid. And whenever that day happens, my friend, woe, woe, woe be unto the American people, because of all these people that's got big fat bank accounts that wanted to play the system. And whenever the system does fall, they'll fall with the system. In other words, you'll wake up one day and you thought that you had this amount of money in the banks, and now you don't have a penny. Or they'll go in and take a certain percentage of your money out. These are crooks. These are nothing more than extortionists that are doing these things. And as long as we, the people, sit back and allow for them to do what they're doing, they're going to continue to bring havoc down upon to us pertaining to all these catastrophes towards the forces of nature. It's not the godly that has brought this upon to us. It's the ungodly. It's the corrupt. It's the bad people that has brought this upon to us, not the good people.
Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Great to have you back on the show. I know we have a lot to talk about with you, including the NATO summit. But first, Director Wray's testimony, do you think it might break through in any way?
Well, it's certainly breaking through to the American people, and you're showing that remarkable questioning that Ted Lieu did yesterday is a part of that. But is it going to break through to the adherents to the cult of Donald Trump? Of course it's not. I mean, you need to remember here, when your prime directive, the reason you get up in the morning, the only reason you stay in politics is because you defend this awful, risible man. You've got two really weak defenses. The first is what you saw yesterday, which is despite all of the facts that Ted Lieu so memorably laid out, you attack the FBI. Oh, by the way, you attack the mainstream media, you attack science, you attack Tony Fauci, you attack all of these people who have a message of reality which is inconsistent with your own. The second thing you have, of course, is whataboutism. Okay, I understand that some of the most sensitive secrets on the planet were found in a ballroom in Mar-a-Lago, but what about Hillary Clinton's emails? That, of course, is a defense we wouldn't accept from our 3-year-old child, but that's what you're left with when you are a fully paid member of the cult of Trump.
Or the cult of the Democrat Party. One is just as bad as the other towards throwing dirt on the other. So, you know, what Biden done yesterday was a good thing. But I feel like no matter what president would have been a decent president, as long as he would have stood with the commitment with the Ukrainian people. I feel like that no matter who was up there was going to have basically the same repercussions towards NATO, because this is what NATO has been striving towards all along. We just got lucky to the degree that we got NATO on our side. But eventually, even NATO could turn against us by saying, you know what, we're not going to support a bunch of crooks. We're not going to support a bunch of liars. We're not going to support a bunch of this and a bunch of that, and put everybody in the right category and basically turn their back on us, because that could actually occur. Don't say that it can't. What has happened with this government is appalling. It is appalling by how that they have tried to sneak around and lie to the American people by saying one thing, by doing just the total opposite. It is absolutely appalling. And what really, really freaks me out right now as an American citizen, not an American Christian citizen, but an American citizen, what freaks me out is that we went out of our way to diminish our stockpiles pertaining to our military. We went out of our way to use up various oil supplies that we had on guard on both coasts, that was sitting there in case of an emergency, that now certain administrations has used up, or used a great deal of it up. And if the American people was to ever be attacked by not a banana republic, but by a communist controlled country, regardless whether it was Russia or China, I mean, we want to diminish the things that Russia has been involved in which deservingly fair, because of how that they have destroyed innocent men, women, and children. But don't think for a second that they couldn't turn on us in a direct way towards actually seeing missiles and bombs being blown up over here, or having Ponzi's come over here, to the degree that they was planning stuff and making it look like that it was our own people that was doing it. There is so much corruption going on worldwide that I'm pretty sure some of these communist controlled countries are beginning to scratch their heads towards wondering what the hell is really happening here. And to be quite honest with you, if I was one of those oligarchs, or if I was one of them communist control people, either over in China or wherever, I'd probably be scratching my head wondering the same thing. There's too much unaccountability issues that goes on in America, because people does not hold our politicians to the fire pertaining to how that they have failed us. And it's turning into nothing but a three-ring circus up there in Washington, D.C. And to be quite honest with you, I think it's been a three-ring circus way, way before January the 6th, 2.5+ years ago. Way before then, it was a three-ring circus. And I think most of the people that's got good sense about them would tell you the very same thing. It's been a wild, wild west show for a while now up there in the White House, towards one group trying to cover up the mistakes for another group, while they're making mistakes themselves and lying and telling more lies to cover up their lies. It's awful. I'm almost ashamed to even call myself an American anymore. It's that bad.
Yeah.
So this similar group of right-wing Republicans also trying to use the military budget. Happens every year, the bill to kill Americans' aid to Ukraine. The group also looking to use budget talks to end military funding on issues like travel-related costs for abortion services, medical care for transgender service members. Debate on the nearly $900 billion budget began yesterday. The wish list of those far-right members stands little chance of passing the House as a whole, but those members could delay the passage of the bills.
And it does make you wonder, how come America can spend all this money by giving all these guns and giving all these aid away, while we ourselves can't even take care of our streets in Chicago or can't take care of the homeless in L.A. It does make you wonder where our priorities truly are towards being, as far as I'm concerned, nothing more than a bunch of warmongers. They talk about peace. You know, all them words that Biden talked about. There's been other presidencies, even Trump, that was in behind some of those great speeches. But even Donald Trump degraded certain things about NATO, which I'm glad personally that NATO thinks enough of us that they're willing to stand with us, especially over violence, and especially over some moron like the Russian government right now that's committing upon to the Ukrainian people. But where is the end game to all this? You have to start looking at the big picture. Where's the end game going to be? Is it going to get so treacherous to the point that we just turn on ourselves and basically one country basically takes its own self out by the bad and the evil and the demonic overpowering the good? Well, that's what they want. And as long as people remain silent and as long as people take their hands and keep them under their hips by not speaking out on behalf of what's right, eventually the bad is going to make things that much more worse on the good. Until the good is willing to stand up and put the bad in their place. And that's that way not only in America, but it's going to be that way in every other country. Before we're going to see true global utopia or peace pertaining to prosperity for all equal, it's going to take a shaking. And in the process of the shaking, it's only going to be a few that's going to come out of the remnant. But all these horrible bad things can be prevented if we will only work with one another. But it's pretty obvious that the devil has taken charge of these people's lives, and now we got one agency that's at the other agency's throat to the point that now nothing is getting done. Or if it is getting done, it's in a poor way towards what's getting done for the will of the people. Yesterday was a good day for President Biden. Him standing up with the Ukrainian people, standing shoulder to shoulder with NATO, was a good day for Biden and a good day for the American people. As long as we can maintain that unity and as long as we can maintain that image, I feel like that we're on the right track pertaining to democracy overthrowing autocracy. But there's going to be a lot of wrinkles that's going to have to be worked out in between now and wherever the pivotal point's going to be to the point of us actually seeing a revival that's going to elevate into a revolution. It's going to take a lot of compromise and debate. And to be quite honest with you, I'm a born-again Christian, and I'm not going to compromise. I know I'm not perfect. Like I said earlier, I can't walk on water. I've never rose the dead. I'm striving in my own imperfections and inadequacies towards trying to stay in alignment with my relationship with the Lord, towards walking a righteous lifestyle. If I have to offend people in doing that, then so be it. It's pretty obvious where the Bible talks about that my sheep will know my voice. It's very obvious that my voice has not been going to the proper sheep, because if they was, or if it had been, I feel like by now I would have had people that was standing in my corner supporting the founder of the Windmill Ministries and what the endeavors of the Windmill Ministries supported. I still don't see that to this day. They can talk all the talk that they want to talk. And whenever it's all said, at the end of the day, it's all talk. Don't tell me how much you love me. Show me how much you love me. Don't tell me how much you care about the things that I care about. Show me how much you care about the same things that I care about. We're tired of the hypocrisy. That's what that person on the news was saying a while ago.
Bill, so Congressman, what's going on here? Take us inside the room. What are they opposed to? Is there a chance really that this budget will be held up, or is this purely symbolic? And what do you make of someone in the upper chamber like Senator Tommy Tuberville holding up all these military promotions, including the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, on this one issue of abortion services in the military?
Good question, and in some ways there's a parallel to the weird sight of the Republican Party, which for generations has called itself the law and order party and called itself the party of the military, now being willing to sacrifice both of those institutions on the altar of their culture war. Now let me, as long as I'm playing my role of Congress whisperer here, explaining what Republicans are doing with Chris Wray, what's happening with the defense budget is, writ large, Republicans understand that their fundamental policy core, even though there is, maybe not one other than defending Donald Trump, massive tax cuts for very wealthy people, which, remember, was the one big legislative quote-unquote achievement in the Trump administration, that's pretty unpopular. That their desire to cut Medicare and Social Security, pretty unpopular. Economy pretty good under Joe Biden. And so what they're left with is the one real ammunition they've got, and that is the culture war issues. In Virginia, they won a governor's election because they got their message out on parents having a role in education. This takes you into the world of transgender rights, into drag queens, into women's reproductive choice. It's the one thing they've got, and what you see with Senator Tuberville, and the reason we may not get a National Defense Authorization Act passed is because that's all they've got, and they're going to put it front and center, even if it means that you're creating risk for the FBI and not getting a military budget passed.
Congressman, can I ask you about Ukraine and the NATO summit that we've just had, and the concerns I keep hearing from European allies about what happens if Donald Trump replaces Joe Biden in the next election, and just spell out to us what the risk there is potentially, not just for Ukraine, but actually, forget about Ukraine's future membership for NATO, about the risk for NATO itself.
Well, the weird love that Donald Trump felt for dictators, Vladimir Putin chief amongst them, but of course, the quote-unquote love letters to the dictator of North Korea, et cetera, that may tell you all you need to know. And of course, Donald Trump was impeached the first time because of the phone conversation he had with the president of Ukraine, this president of Ukraine, asking for dirt on Joe Biden. So I think that we're okay through the next presidential election. There is in this building those people who would cut aid to Ukraine, but that's a fringy position. Donald Trump becomes president, you know how he feels about NATO. There's no ambiguity about that. And you know how he feels about Vladimir Putin. And so, I don't really want to go there, but that would be a very, very bad turn of events for the fight, not just for Ukraine, but for democratic, responsive regimes against autocracy.
Ranking member of the House Intel Committee, Congressman Jim Hines, representing the 4th District of Connecticut. Congressman, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it. So, Donnie, to watch that hearing yesterday with Christopher Wray, where he sort of calmly and dispassionately just struck down every conspiracy theory lobbed his way and defended his own character when they suggested he was out to get conservatives. He said, look up my personal history. I'm a Republican, have been my whole life, worked for George W. Bush's Judicial Department and everything else. You would get
working for the people that allowed for 3,000 people to die during the time that they were supposed to be protecting us. Do you not see what I'm talking about? That the swamp has never been drained pertaining to the people that obviously dropped the ball. I don't know if they couldn't take care of us. I don't know if they didn't want to take care of us. But the bottom line, it has been a tremendous failure from A to Z, either monetarily, physically, emotionally, or psychologically. It has been a total failure pertaining to us going backwards versus going forwards. And the proof is in the pudding. The reason why is because a lot of them people that was working for those administrations then are still working for administrations to this day. They ain't never got them out of there. It's a cancer from within. And if you don't clean it up from the inside out, It's never going to work by cleaning it up from the outside in. Even Jesus used that analogy by using it as a cup pertaining to a human being, that you don't clean a cup from the outside in, you clean a cup from the inside out, pertaining to cleaning up your act, cleaning up a person's emotions, cleaning up whether or not a person wants to live in sin or whether or not they're trying to live a life of righteousness. And it's going to take the power of the Holy Spirit to cause that person to want to live that life, and it's going to require a commitment with that person that wants to live that type of life with God, with the righteousness of God. If not, you're only playing games. I realize that the emotions, and because of the chemicals, and because of the temptations being so strong, that it's very overpowering in how that a person can be overwhelmed by being over tempted in today's society, because the temptations are so great. I mean, they really are. I've never seen the temptations from A to Z be as great and as tempting as what they are today. They're more greater today than what they've ever been. Which, because of that, is causing people that don't have good sound relationships with the Lord to wind up giving in to the ways of the devil. You know, I can't tell you how many people that I've heard talk about, oh, whenever I get to Washington, D.C., we're going to clean it up. We're going to clean it up. We're going to get in there and we're going to clean it up. And then once they get in there, they become just as corrupt as the people that they wanted to conform. Why? Because the bad apple has done already contaminated the system. The system has been broken. You got more bad than you do good. Or you got people that are inadequate in the positions that they play in or that they work in, and because of it, it's caused a dilemma. I just pray to God that we do not get attacked by a major country like China or even Russia. I just pray to God that we do not get physically attacked, militarily speaking, from some other entity like that. Because right now, with us being in so many different directions, I don't know that we're smart enough to conform. I think that we would destroy ourselves before we ever conformed in destroying the true enemy. And once you reach a state of being that way, that's a very, very dangerous state for a nation to be in. Regardless whether it's a Republican or a Democrat nation, regardless whether it be a democracy nation or even a communist-controlled nation, once you have that much uncertainty going on, of people questioning the people that's questioning the people, you know, whenever you have to send out investigators to investigate the investigators to see if they're doing their jobs, in which, you know, that was one of the dilemmas that I run into by going out to Waco and going out to Oklahoma City towards investigating those two horrible incidences, that whenever you have to send people out to investigate the investigators to find out whether or not they was on the money or not, and then you figure out that they wasn't on the money, that they lied to the American people, there you go. And there's so many different calamities that they talk about on TV. They talk about a conspiracy, then they talk about a conspiracy theory. They talk about a conspiracy theory, then they talk about a conspiracy. And it gets people confused to the point that they can't recognize the differences. There has been a conspiracy in America that began in the later part of the 80s that has put us where we are today. Not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy has happened. A travesty has happened. And to this day, people have still not given a full account towards the travesty that has happened. Regardless whether it's the people down the road or up the road, the people in Tennessee, or the people in other states, or the people in Washington, D.C. There's still unaccountability issues that still has not been properly addressed in America.
That Republicans in that room are more concerned about the FBI's conduct than they are about Donald Trump's conduct, which is to say they're happy to look the other way when he's taking nuclear secrets and defense planning back to Mar-a-Lago, when he's plotting an attempted coup against the United States government, but they're really specific in their criticism of the FBI.
You know, if somebody just tuned in and watched the arc of this show today, you cannot have any more of a stunning contrast of Republicans and Democrats than what we've seen so far. So you see basically a Joe Biden strong in front of NATO, bringing the European alliance together, standing next to Zelensky. You see Steve Ratner, we love Steve Ratner, and his charts, just going through GDP numbers, going through inflation numbers, going through jobs numbers. You see a positiveness, you see a progressiveness, you see a move forward, a green light. On the Republican side, what do you see? You see the Christopher Wray hearings. You talk about Tommy Tuberville trying to get in the way of the military, helping on medical care for their participants. And you go, this is really a tale of two parties right now. I mean, I cannot remember in as long back as I can remember where you just have one party that's got a go button and a positive button, and another party that's got a stop button and a negative button going after our institutions. And it really is a stunning contrast. All you need to do is turn into Morning Joe to really see what the hell's going on in this country.
And Mara, as the congressman said, all that performative outrage in that hearing yesterday in defense of Donald Trump, they're still running interference for him.
They're running interference for him. One of the things that's disturbing is, I guess this is working with a portion of the American people. And that, for me, is just kind of hard to take. I mean, it's also just, I am old enough, I'm not that old, and I'm old enough to remember when, support for law enforcement and the FBI in particular was actually something that was owned by Republicans, owned by conservatives. And it was actually liberals who were most skeptical. And, of course, never to this level. I mean, this is obscene. But it's kind of a stunning turn of events. I always think the same when you hear Donald Trump, of course, 5 years ago today, kind of defending Vladimir Putin instead of our own law enforcement and security and intelligence agencies. And you just think it's like you're living in an upside-down world. And so what exactly is this hold that Trumpism has on some portion of the American people, that their representatives are coming to Washington and acting amok in this way? As Mika said, whether it's, ignorance, stupidity, or graft, something more nefarious, I don't know. But one thing's for sure is that the integrity of the FBI, the integrity of our institutions, really remains and endures despite these attacks. And so I think that is heartening. We're still seeing democracy in action. And so let's keep it out. Sunlight's the best disinfectant. That's what we say in our business. So
we saw a lot of that yesterday in that hearing. Mara Gay, thank you very much, and thank you for working on 2 Wordles a day from the New York Times. We get a morning and an evening.
You heard it here first.
We'd appreciate it. Thanks, Mara. Coming up next, a look at the extreme weather across the country, including the dangerous heat wave that continues to impact tens of millions of Americans. Plus, it appears now writers on the picket lines are about to get some reinforcements. Hollywood actors on the verge here in the next, just over an hour, going on strike. We'll have more on the latest turmoil for the entertainment industry when Morning Joe comes right back.
Good luck to all of us is all I got to say. God bless us, and heaven help us all. Heaven help us all. Lord Jesus, come quickly.